As the power struggle ensued in the political arena,
the latest action-adventure game from the people who brought you the Onimusha series packs some of the most brutal hand-to-hand combat you've ever seen in a game. There's plenty of story and intrigue to conveniently justify all the gory violence. In fact, Shadow of Rome successfully combines two distinctly different types of gameplay, since there are some stealth sequences thrown in between the numerous gladiator pit fights. These ultimately help give Shadow of Rome a good sense of variety, though the combat is definitely the main attraction and takes center stage more often than not. Feature for feature, there's nothing hugely original about Shadow of Rome, but its combination of different elements is definitely unique. Its characters are expressive and fun to watch, and the quality of its presentation is right up there with the best of what the PS2 has to offer. Shadow of Rome is the story of two young friends, the muscle-bound centurion Agrippa and the mild-mannered Octavianus. When Julius Caesar is brutally murdered and Agrippa's father is accused of the crime, Agrippa ends up becoming a gladiator in a desperate attempt to stop his father's impending execution. Meanwhile, Octavianus suspects foul play and proceeds to investigate what really happened by skulking behind the scenes. Don't expect a history lesson from Shadow of Rome, but do expect an interesting and surprising sequence of events to unfold. The story does a fine job of tying up all its loose ends and delivering a satisfying sense of closure, while still leaving room for the possibility of a next chapter in the saga. When you're playing as Agrippa, limbs fly and blood spatters everywhere in a typical battle, though you can toggle off the graphic violence if you like. Still, this is pure hack-and-slash combat. Agrippa will take on multiple foes of all shapes and sizes, sometimes all at once. It's grisly and sometimes shocking, but it's not mindless. Plenty of unique moves and a great variety of gnarly weapons are available, and there are plenty of different match types, each with their own twists, so it's not all about being the last man standing, though that's usually a good idea. Thanks to all the different factors at play, there's a real sense of chaos on the battlefield, which is great. Battles never play out quite the same way twice. One key aspect of combat is that weapons, shields, and armor are all quite flimsy and will soon shatter from use. Sure enough, you can't block attacks while barehanded, so Shadow of Rome often requires you to scavenge the battlefield, snatching up a fresh weapon just as soon as you shatter the last one you were using. For good measure, it's possible to throw virtually any weapon, even the gigantic two-handed ones. Those gladiatorial battles may look like a tough act for the stealth sequences to follow, and sure enough, the stealth sequences aren't quite as good. But they're certainly not bad, and offer a style of gameplay that fans of the Metal Gear Solid or Hitman series should pick right up. Octavianus can't really fight, though he can knock foes unconscious by creeping up on them and bashing them over the head with a vase, or making them trip up on a banana peel. Mostly, though, he'll be trying to avoid contact with enemies altogether by creeping silently outside their field of vision. An incredibly helpful map is always available, revealing exact enemy locations and where you need to go next, so you won't waste any time just wandering around. You'll fail certain sequences automatically if your foes so much as spot you, but each sequence is pretty short, so the occasional need for trial and error doesn't get too frustrating. In fact, some of the combat portions of the game are probably more frustrating than the stealth bits, though the piecemeal nature of Shadow of Rome's action sequences means that no single hurdle should take too long to overcome. This game offers some of the best hack-and-slash combat of any game out there, and wraps it up in an interesting story that puts an original spin on the whole Julius Caesar getting murdered thing. It's also got plenty of gameplay variety to keep you motivated from start to finish, and it's always pretty to look at. Some like to say that video game shelves are flooded with sequels that are too short and too easy these days. If that's you, then Shadow of Rome is definitely your game.